Okay, the reading from Emmett Fox is titled The Danger of Anger. He begins with a scripture from Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 to 24. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and remember that your brother or sister hath anger against thee, leave the gift before the altar and go the way. First be reconciled to your sister or brother, and then come and offer your gift.
The Lamsa translation is very similar. If it should happen, therefore, that while you are presenting your offering upon the altar, and right there you remember that your brother has any grievance against you, leave your offering there upon the altar, and first go and make peace with your brother, and then come back and present your offering.
Indignation, resentment, the desire to punish other people, the desire to get even, the feeling it serves him right. All these things form a quite impenetrable barrier to spiritual power.
I'll take care of it.
Jesus says that if you are bringing a gift to the altar and you remember that your brother or sister has anything against you, you must put down your gift and go make peace. And when you have done that, your offering will be acceptable. Jesus builds up this tremendous lesson in the Oriental tradition. He says first that whoever is angry with his brother shall be in danger. Second, that to be hostile to another is to be in grave danger. And finally, to hold so low an opinion about a fellow creature as to consider him or her outside the pale is to shut ourselves off from any hope of spiritual fruit while we remain in this state of mind. Note carefully that the King James Version of the Bible here makes a serious error, which has been corrected in the Revised Version. It interpolates a phrase not in the earliest manuscripts, and makes Jesus say, "Whosoever is angry without a cause," which is a manifest absurdity. No sane person gets angry without what he deems to be a cause. What Jesus said was that whoever is angry with his brother under any circumstances is in danger.
Thank you. So the title today is Yes, You Can. And the last few weeks that I've talked, we've been talking about lifting the world up, the widow's mite, for instance. And this week, as I was waiting for inspiration about what to talk about, I found myself going back to a set of Bible verses that I used in one of the other recent talks, Matthew 5:14-16, where it says, "You are indeed the light of the world. A city that is built upon a mountain cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lamp holder, so it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light thus shine before men." And the substance of what I've talked about in the past was the widow's mite, the encouraging everyone to have the courage to give what you may perceive as the little bit you have to offer, because you never know what effect that widow's mite of gift that you have given, what effect it might have on the recipient or on the world. And as I think all except the newest of you know, one of my firm beliefs is our job is to make the world a better place for having passed through. So as I was trying to figure out what to talk about, I realized I didn't seem to be finished with this particular area of conversation yet. And, well, you all know when the divine gives you a nudge, it's not a bad idea to follow that nudge. So I want to explore the idea of the power of the widow's mite and how much impact a mite can have in the overall lifting up of the universe.
Turn up your volume.
As I can't, that has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
As I was thinking about what to write, I came across a book passing through in our Books for the Needy program titled The Voice of the Infinite in the Small. Because we tend to think of the widow's mite as small, and yet think of the story in the Bible. A desperately poor widow throwing her 2 pennies in amidst all the sacks of gold and wealth that all the wealthy people were throwing in. Wouldn't seem like much, but we're still talking about it now. There have been ripples. Now, I officiated a wedding Saturday, and there was a part of a reading that I use that seems to be appropriate here. It's called The Art of Marriage, and there are 2 lines that are relevant. The first line is, the little things are the big things. And the other line is, it's remembering to say, I love you at least once a day. Both very small things. And yet, in terms of making a marriage thrive, both of them are really important. You know, kindness is so powerful, and we're talking about acts of kindness as widow's mites here. Whether it's a little thing like buying someone a cup of coffee, giving an encouraging word to someone as you're passing by, you just never know what impact it might have. And my guess is that most of us, if we think over our lifetime, can fairly easily remember a time or multiple times when someone stepped out of their own life and blessed us, perhaps sometimes without even being aware of it. Kindness doesn't often look dramatic, even when it's happening. It's often a quiet moment, a small decision, a simple sentence that just happens to come at the right moment for maximum impact. And usually it's done not expecting applause or recognition, but those who've received it remember it for years. A small gesture can steady someone during a hard week, restore their faith in people, change the direction of their lives in ways that no one would have expected. And that's the real power of everyday kindness. So the question is, what little thing or things will we be able to do this week that might just last with someone for a lifetime? And again, while I was preparing this, I stumbled across a whole bunch of stories of people where that widow's mite made so much difference. And I've asked Sylvie and Lori and Phyllis to help out. We're going to recount some of these just to give you an idea how sometimes insubstantial it may seem to the giver, and yet how powerful to the recipient. So let's see. Sylvie, I think you get to go first.
I do. Okay. When I was a fresh mom with 2 under 3, my card got declined in the checkout line. The baby was in the car seat. The 2-year-old was asking for bubble gum and chocolate bars. I felt like I could just melt into the floor. Without missing a beat, the man behind me in line handed the cashier his card. "I've got it," he said. That was 10 years ago, and I will never forget it.
Go ahead and leave your mic on since we're going to be bouncing back and forth. Okay, Lori, you have one to contribute.
When I worked at a coffee shop, we had someone buy their own coffee and then anonymously buy the next person in line's coffee, just saying, "Pay it forward." The next person was shocked to hear their coffee was covered and said, "Well, I want to buy the one for the next customer." The pay it forward lasted most of the afternoon with people buying other people's drinks. My friend at the cash register was near tears by the end of her shift. I won't forget that day. I doubt she has either.
Okay. One time in the Target line, a mom with a brand new infant and two littles who were crying and clinging to her legs asked if I might hold her baby for a minute. I took that baby and rocked her in my arms until she stopped fussing. I bet that mom remembers that day. I know I do.
Sylvie?
When my toddler was somewhere between teenager and four,
Three-nager.
tornado, what?
Yeah, three-nager and four-nado.
Three-nager and four-nado. Okay. She threw a giant tantrum in the shopping center. I held her on a park bench while she screamed like I was her kidnapper. A couple older ladies stopped and said, "You're doing an amazing job, Mama. Hang in there." I will never, ever forget them or their words that day.
In a train depot in France, we were lost and confused, trying to figure out where to go. An older man sitting near us accidentally dropped some cash on the ground. My daughter, who was 6, found it and returned it to him. He and his friend loaded us up with snacks from their bags and then in broken English asked us if we needed help. They ended up walking us all the way to our next train and riding it with us for a while just to make sure we didn't get lost. We won't ever forget those two men.
One time on a family road trip, we stopped at a roadside cafe to get lunch. When we went to pay, we found out that another couple had already bought it, saying, "We had a sweet family." You better believe we'll remember that forever.
When I was 19 and barely surviving my first year of college, I used to hide in the campus library between classes because I did not want to spend money at cafes. One librarian started recognizing me. One evening, she walked over and slid a granola bar across the desk and said, "We're clearing out snacks from an event. Take one before they expire." I knew she bought it herself. She kept doing it every few days, always pretending it was leftovers. During final week, she handed me a small paper bag with 2 sandwiches and said, "Long nights need real food." I never told her I was skipping meals to save money. She just saw a tired kid and decided to care.
I ripped my only decent blazer right before a job interview. I ran into a tiny tailor shop and basically begged them to fix it in an hour. The owner looked at the tear and said it would normally take a day. I must have looked panicked because an older man waiting for his own clothes said, "Put mine aside, fix hers first." He told me he remembered what it felt like to chase your first real job. I got the blazer back just in time and nailed the interview. When I tried to thank him, he waved me off and said, "One day you will do this for someone else." I think about that every time I let someone cut ahead of me in a line.
I live alone and had a horrible flu last winter. At 2 a.m., I accidentally knocked over a glass and it shattered everywhere. I started crying because I felt so sick and tired. My downstairs neighbor knocked on my door a minute later. I thought he was going to complain. Instead, he handed me a broom and a mug of hot tea. He said he heard the crash and figured I might need some help. We cleaned up together in silence, and before leaving, he said, "Text me if you need soup tomorrow." He actually brought homemade soup the next day. We had barely spoken before that night.
I bought a used novel from a secondhand bookstore. Inside was an old receipt with a handwritten note on the back that said, "If you are reading this, I hope today is gentle with you. You are doing better than you think." I was going through a breakup, and it hit me way harder than I expected. I kept that receipt in my wallet for months. Whoever wrote it had no idea who would find it, but it felt like a message meant just for me.
I used to shop. I used to shop late at night after my shifts. There was a cashier who always worked that lane. One week I stopped coming in because I had surgery. When I finally returned, she looked genuinely relieved and said she had been worried. She asked how I was feeling and then quietly applied her employee discount to my bill. It was not a huge amount, but it felt huge to me. Being noticed like that, especially when you feel invisible, is powerful.
I failed my first big presentation in university. I was so embarrassed I skipped the next class. That evening, my professor emailed me. I expected criticism. Instead, he wrote, "You have good ideas. Your nerves just got loud. Come to my office. We will practice until your voice feels steady." He spent 2 hours helping me rehearse. The next presentation went great. He did not have to invest that time, but he did. It changed how I see mentorship and kindness in education.
My little sister has autism and gets overwhelmed easily. A street musician was playing guitar when we walked by. She froze and started flapping her hands, which sometimes draws stares. The musician noticed and gently shifted into a softer, slower tune. She calmed down and sat on the sidewalk listening. When we left, he handed her a guitar pick and said, "Music is for everyone."
I got caught in a sudden downpour while walking home from work. A woman I had never seen before tapped my shoulder and silently held her umbrella over both of us. We walked 3 blocks together without much conversation. When we parted, she smiled and said, "Dry shoes are underrated." After a brutal week, it felt like proof that strangers can still look out for each other.
After my grandfather passed away, our elderly neighbor brought over a handwritten recipe card for his favorite soup. She said they used to cook it together years ago and thought I should have it. We made that soup on the anniversary of his death. It tasted like childhood. That small piece of paper connected me to memories I was scared of losing.
On my first week at a new job, I messed up a report badly. I was sure I would get fired. A co-worker noticed me spiraling and offered to stay late to fix it with me. We worked for 3 extra hours. He told me everyone deserves a soft landing when they start something new.
I joined a local community garden after moving to a new city. On my first day, I felt awkward and out of place. An older couple handed me a pair of gloves and showed me how to plant tomatoes. They introduced me to everyone like I had always been part of the group. That garden became my social circle and helped me feel rooted in a place that once felt lonely.
I was flying alone for the first time and looked visibly anxious. A woman sitting next to me slid a sticky note onto my table tray. It said, "I used to be scared of flying too. You are safe. We will land before you know it." She chatted with me during turbulence and distracted me with stories about her travels. I still keep that note tucked in my passport.
My headphones broke during a stressful exam season. A guy in my dorm saw me trying to tape them together and offered to fix them. He spent an hour soldering the wires like it was no big deal. When I asked what I owed him, he just laughed and said, "Just pass your exams." And those headphones carried me through weeks of studying.
My fiance died when I was 5 months pregnant. I was drowning in grief and still trying to hold on to the connection I had with his family. My mother-in-law uninvited me from my own baby shower and told the guests, "She's not family yet. This is for our grandchild." I told her I was going to show up anyway because I wanted to feel close to my fiance through the people he loved. And at the entrance, a strange man pulled me aside and whispered, "Leave now. This family has been saying cruel things about you all morning, and some of them are also planning to pull a harsh prank. You do not deserve to walk into that." I did not know him. He was a distant relative who had overheard everything. His voice was gentle but firm. I stepped outside and completely broke down. He stayed with me, called me a ride, and said, "Protect your peace and protect that baby." That small act of honesty saved me from walking into a room designed to humiliate me. Just like he asked, I protected my baby and cut off all those toxic people. My mother-in-law has never apologized. In fact, she now tells people I took away her son and grandchild.
When I was at university, I struggled with my mental health. One of the most acute spikes of anxiety and depression coincided with exam season. In the midst of this crisis, I was volunteering at a local charity shop. When I started my shift, one of my fellow volunteers presented me with an entire bag of home-cooked meals, enough to last me a week, saying, "So you have one less thing to worry about." It remains the kindest thing anyone's ever done for me. The food was delicious, and I ended up doing well in my exams, too.
Sophie's next.
My husband died on Christmas Day when I was 35. My first birthday without him was 6 months later. Our daughter had just turned 3, and so I was up early making her breakfast. When I drew back the curtains, I discovered that my sister had been to my house very early and stuck "Happy Birthday" and "We love you" signs up on my windows. It really lit up a dark morning.
I'm currently going through cancer treatment and things are very uncertain. With too much time on my hands, I have sometimes felt very lost and frightening thoughts. I mentioned to a friend I was running out of courage. A parcel arrived with a beautiful soft toy lion inside with a message. "Here's some extra courage for you. I sleep with the lion. If I'm wakeful in the night, this little toy soothes me but also connects me to the loving support of my friend."
I was at work when I heard news that my dear dad had taken his own life. I called my friend and worried about me driving after hearing such news. She offered to pick me up in a heartbeat. She drove me 45 minutes to collect my mom and brother and brought us back to my home so we could begin to process what had happened. To bravely support us all in the immediate aftermath was heroic. So these are just examples of small kindnesses. The kindnesses each of you here, each of us, is capable of giving, and I suspect does give without even a second thought. But look at the powerful impact that these folks recounted upon having received a small kindness. But also notice that as small and private as many of these events were, that impact has rippled into our conversation and today's message of go out and do it some more. But then also, sometimes the thought of a small action cascades into something much bigger. I came across an article, I think it was this week, about a Muslim medical student in Lubbock, Texas, and you know how welcomed Muslims are in Texas. There's a good-sized Muslim community around the university there, but there's never been a mosque. Well, this student discovered an abandoned building and thought it would be nice if it could be turned into a mosque and general community center for the community. He talked a local doctor into purchasing the property. They took possession of the property this January and decided that they would hope to repair it sufficiently, because it was really run down. It had not been occupied for quite a while. That maybe they could repair it sufficiently that they could actually, in 45 days, celebrate Ramadan in their own mosque. Now, he shared this vision on social media, and very soon people were coming from all over the country to aid with the cleanup and the repairs. And not only did all these volunteers from all over the country help out, and in fact, some of the global community too, but they also had the time to create 30,000 meals to give to the local food pantries. Now, as awareness of this project started, some of the local merchants started helping out. They'd supply materials, a couple of hotels provided rooms for people who were flying in. But you can also guess what happened. The right-wingers started a campaign against the project, claiming that it was just another case of the Muslims trying to take over the United States. Well, so what did the Muslims do? They hosted a barbecue. They invited the whole community in. They had music. They greeted everyone. There were games for the kids. And there was a quote from someone in the article. I was afraid the Muslims would be scary, angry people, but they were fun to be around. All this from one guy who decided that it'd be nice to take an abandoned building and turn it into a mosque. And they also created a food bank there. They created a playground for kids, and they're negotiating with the distributor to food banks in the whole region to establish a warehouse right on their property. And was that what he thought about originally? No. So why am I telling you this? Well, he has a quote, by the way, that I thought was wonderful. Our religion teaches us that the best of people are those who can benefit others. I am taking that philosophy to show that Muslims, we're not just here to pray, we're here to also help others to give back to the community. So I'm telling you this story not to frighten you or not to have grandiose ideas, but just be aware that it's entirely possible that some small widow's mite kindness you do will balloon into something much bigger even before your own eyes. Or like the widow's mite that Jesus talked about, be available 2 centuries later to encourage us to give kindness. Now, I found a quote from the late Howard Thurman, who was chaplain of Boston University, that I think is a nice place to bring to a close. He said in an address once, "There is a quiet courage that comes from an inward spring of confidence in the meaning and significance of life. Such courage is an underlying river flowing from beneath the shifting events of one's experience, keeping alive 1,000 little springs of action." I'm going to read this one more time because it's a little complex, but it's right on point. There is a quiet courage that comes from an inward spring of confidence in the meaning and the significance of life. Such courage is an underlying river flowing from beneath the shifting events of one's experience and keeping alive 1,000 little springs of action. So the close is, be not afraid to give out little kindnesses. Be not afraid to give out little kindnesses. And based on my experience, from time to time, a little kindness will be rejected because the person is too damaged to allow good into their lives. But that doesn't, as Jesus said once, just shake the sand off your sandals when you're in that situation and keep on walking. And that's what I have to say today. Uh, any contributions, thoughts?
The other day I was at our store here in town, and one of the gals, was working, and she was telling me that, she has chickens and an overflow of eggs, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked if she needed cartons, and she said, yeah. And I said, well, give me a minute and I'll go home and bring a few back. She was only expecting like 3 or 4. Well, whenever I buy eggs, I keep the cartons. Came back with a bag full, and she's like, wow, thanks. I was only expecting like 3 or 4. You'll definitely get some free eggs now. And it's just, it was something I had. I was about ready to throw them away. I was doing, spring cleaning, and, it helped her, and, it'll help me, and, you know, small acts of kindness. I was talking to a friend over the phone, and usually, something that starts out a 5 to 10 minute call ends up like a 3-hour phone call, which is awesome. But, and it helps her because she can't get out much. And so that social interaction, she has said that it really helps her. Again, we're sitting in our living rooms or wherever, we're sitting, we're fellowshipping, we're talking about, our days, our times, our thoughts, small acts of kindness, but it brings joy. It doesn't, it doesn't take much, much effort. I send, texts and messages to people, or if you're familiar with those, the avatars on Facebook, good morning, thinking of you, how are you? It doesn't take much, but another friend of mine had gotten all 4 wisdom teeth pulled. Yeah, right. And she goes, I was so happy to see your message. No one's been messaging me. So that was like sunshine. Okay. But something that took like 2 seconds just, brightened up her day. So those things that we may think that are very, very small, it may not be small, for somebody else.
Thank you. Christy?
Good morning. I am in kind of a caregiving role where I'm at right now. So I recognize what my day is or where I'm giving and the stories that may evolve from that. But I've been receiving, and those are the stories I'd like to tell. In that I was calling the grocery store because someone was going to pick up a couple of groceries for me, and I'm talking to the meat man who's going to pack it up. And I am eating meat, and there were 2 different types of beef. So one was priced lower than the other. And my comment was about how high the other one had gone. When the package came home, both of them were priced at the lower. So the higher had been weighed in at the same price as the other, which was his ability to know, because I've talked to him before when someone's picking up for me. It was a kindness that was never expected, especially coming from a grocery store. And in today's world of prices, my comment was how the price had gone up. And he obviously did something knowingly to make it easier for me, which was really remarkable. It was kind of a teary moment. The other was I've had the pleasure of being able to have a coach or therapist through my insurance for some time. And she had been away for maybe a couple of weeks, but when it came time for this last appointment, it went over that allotted time, which can come close to the hour or on the hour. And she did not say that she was going over, but by the end of it, she had said, I've given you 2 hours, and I wanted to because I had the extra time, meaning that also she's letting me know she enjoys talking with me. And I recognize that it is a 2-way back and forth. And the therapist is actually receiving a lot from me as well as I from her. So the gift of that was remarkable. And knowing that in a professional sense, she was offering her time to me because she looked forward to having the conversation. So I'm receiving in a beautiful way, and I wanted to share that to know when we are in that place of receiving. Yes, it's always, I think we're speaking to the choir with the group we're in right now as far as the giving, because I think this is that group that does give, but are you aware of your receiving? And that is, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dear God, we thank you for this community. We thank you for having created it, for having sustained it, for creating family out of people who otherwise would not know each other. We thank you for the love and the caring that's shared, for the sharing of discomforts that we can support, as well as celebrations we can joy with. We thank you for adding wisdom to us as we depart from here, giving us opportunities to do small kindnesses, and giving us opportunities to become ever more embedded in you and of you, and able to bring this world to a better place. We give you full gratitude to all the good and all the love in our lives. We say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen.
Amen.
We will see you all next week. Blessings to every one of you. And if we can be of assistance, you know how to get hold of us.